into her story here tonight. Oh, if we only got one life, we gotta live it right. We're the mothers and daughters, sisters and queens. If we lift up each other, we can achieve anything. We're the ones who are gonna make the change. We're the ones who are gonna flip the page. Spread love like rings in the water. Yeah, that's the power of a woman. We'll raise our voices until we are heard. We won't stop. Turn up the volume till we change the world. We didn't come this far to not reach the stars. So let's begin by turning history into her story. It's enough. Oh, if we only got one life, we gotta live it right now. We're the mothers and daughters, sisters and queens. If we lift up each other, we can achieve anything. We're the ones who are gonna make a change. We're the ones who are gonna flip the page. Spread love like rings in the water. Yeah, that's the power of women. We got the power, we got the power. We got the power, we got the power, we got the power. Oh, tonight we're gonna ride our names across the sky so they'll know the power of woman. Sisters and queens, we can achieve anything. We're the ones who are gonna make the change. We're the ones who are gonna flip the page. Spread love like rings in the water. Yeah, that's the power. We got 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 the power. Oh, tonight we're gonna ride our names across the sky so they'll know the power of women.
Hello everyone. We hope that
Hi, I'm Deanne Everson with United Way of Jackson County. I hope you're all well today. I'm here today to talk about that I believe true power lies in saying yes, not no. I'm not burying the lead in my talk. I believe deeply that if we say yes, we get to hear people's stories, we get to engage, and we get to create positive community change. And if we say no, we don't get to do any of those things. I believe that COVID helped us to say no. We knew how to isolate physically as a world community, but we didn't know how to isolate emotionally or spiritually. And the pandemic really drove that home. If you're engaged in community change, and I hope you all are, we need you. We need your emotional intelligence because that's what creates change. As Toni Morrison said, if you're free, you need to free somebody else. If you have power, you need to empower somebody else. I'm one of those people who didn't work remotely during COVID. I didn't know how to do my job from my living room. Community change happens with yes. It happens with hearing the stories, people around us. It happens by integrating those stories into our daily lives and our actions. In 2018, a 15-year-old girl came to see me in my office. And she said, I don't care how many of us you get to graduate high school. I hope you keep us all alive. It still catches in my throat today. And for the past 5 years, we've worked on a program called In This Together, and we are. She went on to share that her friend, who used to sit by her in orchestra practice, had stopped sitting by her and had often not continued to come. One day, she noticed he took down his social media and he texted her goodbye. She knew enough to talk to her mom right away. And it was a good thing because her mom knew enough to call his parents. That night, Zach attempted to take his own life, and he was saved. Unfortunately, his parents' reaction to all of that was to move away from our area. And so the young woman who visited me doesn't know what happened to him. But as a result of that moment, I knew I had to act. I had to listen. I had to learn about what was suicide in our community. What were the numbers? What was the data? And in 2017, Jackson County, Oregon had 53 completed suicides. And in 2018, it climbed to 64. I approached our community partner, KOBI and BC5, because we have done a lot of great community service projects, including a project against the meth epidemic, a project on child abuse prevention, a project on youth educational success. And I can imagine, as you all can, what Bob Wise's reaction was when I marched into his office and said, our next project is going to be on suicide. At the time, the media generally covered suicide by glamorizing it, and it was only about celebrities and methods they'd actually used to take people their own lives. And media didn't cover everyday stories within our communities where you live, and they may still not. But in our community, it's different. A young anchor stepped up to help us. Her name was Blakely McHugh, and she wanted to be the front person of our campaign because her father had taken his life when she was 17. We allowed her to be the front person, and we provided therapeutic support so that she could do it. It was crucial that we do this because we have to change the conversation. We needed to begin sharing a methodology that wasn't about contagion, which was what people's fear was around suicide prevention. Instead, we actually teach people how to say, are you feeling so poorly that you may take your own life? And we've begun to shift that conversation in our community. United Way applied for grants that we were successful in to teach mental health first aid to anyone who wanted to take it. Mental health first aid is a bit like first aid CPR that people take, but it's the next step, and it's about de-escalating crisis situations. In my own feeling, it's about teaching surreptitious kindness. We also applied for funding to help train suicide intervention specialists through applied suicide intervention skills training, and we added more than 200 to our own community, which is small. As Elie Wiesel said, always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the oppressed. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. We can do better. We are doing better. We have to say yes, and we have to change this conversation. We developed spots in partnership with mental health professionals, public health professionals, and always worked hard with emergency providers to know that we were saying the right things. We've done spots on families. We've done spots on veterans and older folks, young people, bullying, especially cyberbullying, people of color, women, men, LGBTQ, IA+, and college-age students. The first 2 years of our campaign had many people come into my office, close the door, and share their own story, whether it was them personally or a loved one. I knew our campaign was working when people started dropping by and not closing the door to talk about their own story. It's really working in our community. We hold quarterly partner meetings and often have guests from all over our country, including Oregon's 2 senators, Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley. We've had visitors from the National Suicide Prevention Hotline who have shared how different they think our campaign is. And we've had a woman share her own story who works for the hotline, who said, you need to run a local story of someone who attempted to take their life and actually chose a different path. And my intern said to me during that meeting, I'd like to be that person. I said no at first, even though I believe we have to say yes. I made Seth consult with his family, his friends, and his doctor. And he came back and said they all said it was all right. I'd like to show you Seth's spot now.
It was around the beginning of my junior year of high school when I really started to struggle a lot with self-esteem and feeling pretty lonely. When I was in that moment feeling like the only way out was to end my life, I thought that I was doing the world a favor. So much of depression, at least for me, is just feeling completely isolated and alone. And to finally open up and let someone else in made such a huge difference to me.
As you can see by the end of that screen, we have many partners in our community, hospitals, law enforcement, even local government, and some corporations, because suicides have impacted their workforce. So how's it going? Well, in 2019, our rate was still climbing and climbed to 75, which is well more than 1 a week. And our law enforcement officers in all of our jurisdictions were hurting from that as well. But by 2020, we dropped to 70 completions. And to do the quick math, again, more than 1 a week. And when people attempt suicide but are not successful, that also requires often law enforcement visits. But by 2021, our rate had plummeted to below 50 for the first time in many years. 47 people took their lives, which means a lot of other people chose not to. We are really grateful. In this together, last year won an Emmy Award for public service, and it also won the Service to America Award from the National Association of Broadcasters. This is happening because I said yes, because I listened, because I engaged and acted. And I want you to do that too, around things you care about. Listen, engage, and act. I saw a meme on Facebook last week that said, I hope beautiful things happen to you. And when they do, I hope you can believe that you are worthy of every single one of them. And in closing, I would say, rather than care about what you do what you care about. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everyone. We hope that you all are enjoying the Power of Women Digital Conference. We want to hear from you and interact with you. We want your voice to be heard. And all you have to do is grab your phone, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code to participate and share your thoughts through our polling questions. And stay tuned, because later in the broadcast, we will have a digital town hall discussion on all the results. And I will let the speaker take it from here.
And I have some questions for our audience. Have you said yes to something new this year? Have you said no to something new this year? Are you engaged in your community, creating positive community change?
Hello, Hanan. We are so thrilled to have you at the Power of Women Digital Conference. You are a force in advancing science, technology, and innovation. And thank you for joining us today, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Shanali. Thanks for this very nice introduction. And I'm really thrilled that I accepted this invitation to speak in this very important conference.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, shall I start?
Please go ahead.
Okay. I will be talking about, in my presentation here, about the global status of women in science, technology, and innovation. We just abbreviate STI, of course, including the Islamic world. Also, some of the challenges that women face in STI and what kind of reform actions to overcome such challenges. And of course, I will talk about some of my research projects, mainly in the area of biotechnology and nanotechnology, and how these areas will fit really toward achieving sustainable development. Now, if we go back to in history and what they call the golden age in Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization dominated the world really of science and learning and technology for almost 600 years. And in fact, I don't know if the audience really know that the founder of the oldest first degree awarding university in the world is a female. It's the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fas, Morocco, and that was in the 19th century. In this university, they were teaching math, Arabic, medicine, astronomy, chemistry, history, geography to all, Muslims, Christians, and Jews youth. In fact, it was recognized by UNESCO as really the oldest operating university that award degree. Now, there were some distinguished women, in fact, during the Islamic civilization that were really famous in science, technology, and innovation. Of course, this slide contains a list of them. I will just mention maybe one, for example, Rufaida al-Islamiyya. She was the first Muslim founder of nursing in the Muslim world. That was even, 1,200 years before Florence Nightingale, which was the founder of modern nursing care in the modern history. And there are so many of them. Because of the limit of time, I will not go through every single of one of them. Also, speaking of women leadership models, as you know, we have really a couple of them, like the first female prime minister of Turkey, that was in 1993, and the first woman president of Indonesia, in 2001, the youngest Afghanis Muslim girl that won Nobel Prize, it was in 2014. And recently, the female prime minister, in fact, of Tunisia, she's my best friend. She was appointed as a prime minister in 2021. As you know, the Muslim world or the Muslim population almost constitutes about 25% of the whole population in the world. They come to around 2 billions, and half of billion Muslim women, right, also are scattered in more than 46 Muslim countries. Now, to achieve equal participation in STEM, when I say STEM, of course, it's science, technology, engineering, math for women and girls, the UN General Assembly declared 11th of February as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. In fact, the theme of this year was innovate, demonstrate, elevate, advance, bringing everyone forward for sustainable and equitable environment. And this is really goes side by side with the theme of this conference, the power of women that I'm talking now. In fact, the UNESCO Director General, she always emphasized, and this year she was saying that women need science and science needs women. Some facts and numbers about the global status of women in STI, including the Islamic world. Imagine globally, women represent 33% of researchers. 35% of all students, they go into STEM-related fields, they are women. Only 22% of the professionals in the field of artificial intelligence, AI, and 12% in national academies of sciences. This information or facts is according to UNESCO recent data. 70% of scientific research is, imagine, conducted by men. And 80% of all patents filed at the intellectual property offices worldwide came from team of men only. More facts and numbers. 90% of the current and future jobs require digital skills, and the fastest growing job categories are related to STEM areas. 20% of the engineering graduates are women, and 11% of those engineers, they get job, Most companies, they incorporate digital technology. It's a must now. These skills are a must for women. And in fact, companies are looking to reach every talented woman in the STEM area to hook in these subjects. Also, 22% of AI professionals are female compared, imagine, to 78% male. So women also, they own less. When it comes to startup also companies, they really are only 10%. In the low and middle income countries, women have 14% less access to mobile phones, 23% less access to internet. Also, 1 out of 4 jobs held by women in the IT industry. And 90% of IT licenses were made by male-only teams. Now, are there Nobel Prize winners? Where are women? Of course, the answer is yes, but as I said, they really represent very minor percentage of the whole, scientists in the world. This list here, I listed several of them starting from 1903 to 2020. In fact, we are really proud of these women. And also, when we talk about the Muslim world, there were some immigrant Muslim women that have really won a lot of international prizes in STEM areas or fields. I will not go into each one of them. I will mention, for example, there's a lady by the name Manhal Thabit. She was ranked among the 30 smartest people alive. She's from Yemen and immigrated to UK. She's a mathematician, engineer, economist, and she has her own companies and so forth. Now, are there challenges facing women in STI? Yes, of course, so many challenges. And how could we really suggest reform actions for such challenges? I will mention some of these challenges. There is always misconception, and this is not just in the Muslim world, in fact, it's globally. There's a misconception about the job technical requirements in STI, career stagnation, lack of promotion, difficult access to research and funding, especially funding, no progress or advancement in the academic leadership for women, no recognition of technical qualification, weak linkage with labor market, okay? And of course, wars and political instability. It really poses a big challenge for women, and also underrepresentation of promoting positive images of women in STI areas. Now, how could we really overcome such challenges? I will suggest, promote women participation in decision-making in STI policies, provide support for successful models through financial measures, and encourage private sector involvement, ensure women's equal access to resources, education, and financial services, increase their capacity, the women and girls, through mentoring, training. They really need a lot of training and enabling. Encourage and develop national, international partnership. And this is very important, in fact. And this is also is important, in one of the 5 Ps when we talk about the sustainable development goals, partnership and collaboration. It's important for women. And integrate STI mentorship and support networks for women in education and employment programs. Now, there were a couple of initiatives, in fact, to overcome these challenges and reform actions in STI in the Islamic world. For example, in Abu Dhabi Declaration, member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, they gathered virtually in UAE in June 16, 2021, to view the implementation of the STI Agenda 2026 and reaffirm their commitment to take reforms for creating an enabling environment for advancement of STI in the OIC member countries. And in fact, one of the articles they demonstrate bluntly and obviously, which is Article 26, it says we are determined, the member and math and STEM education at the primary, secondary, tertiary levels, and to ensure it's accessible to all, especially for women and girls. Now, I will talk briefly about some of my research projects, which is mainly in biotech, biotechnology and nanotechnology, and recently in space microbiology, believe it or not, science engagement and science for society. Now, one of the projects that I have is, it deals with bioremediation. It is an EU-funded project, and this is really the power of collaboration with so many international partners. In this project, we have 5 EU countries and 4 Arab countries. And we already done this project now, and we have great results that we published. In fact, the main objectives of this project was to define a first map of microbial diversity associated with polluted sites in the Mediterranean Sea and Gulf of Aqaba, which is in Jordan, and to establish collection of microbial isolates that have biodegradation potential to clean up the environment, and to develop novel processes for marine bioremediation. Now, why they chose Aqaba, Gulf of Aqaba, which is located in the south part of Jordan, because this site, it serves as a reference example for the potential climate situation of the Mediterranean following, the continuation of the global warming, that's trend that we are already facing, Now, what we have done, we collected samples from several sites of the Gulf of Aqaba that were polluted with oil or with other pollutants, and these are, for example, some of the polluted sites which is oil spill in Gulf of Aqaba during loading and unloading of the oil. See the oil spill here? This is very, very dangerous for the aquatic life in the Gulf, the fish, the coral reefs, and so on. So, and these are more of these contaminated sites. And this is, for example, sulfur here, contaminated sulfur. So I always, I encourage always my students, these are graduate students and young faculties that work with me in this project. We were collecting samples, sediment and water samples. And even we have a diver with us. He's a young faculty that collected sample from deep 20 meters in the Gulf of Aqaba. And we analyzed these samples in the lab using all, approaches, cultural approach and microbiology and molecular approaches. And we were able to collect and culture a lot of the bacterial strains that have, some of them, they were very efficient in degrading the hydrocarbons in the oil spill, and thus, in a way, they were cleaning the environment. These are, we designed these tankers because we have to see in the real situation how these microbial consortia behave. if they are able really to degrade the oil spill that from the samples that we collected. See how these tankers, they are 2,000 liters. And to our surprise, some of them were really very efficient. Look, see this slide here. This is a crude oil here by itself. And we added, we selected like 7 of these most efficient bacteria that were able to degrade the hydrocarbon. And we put them in the crude oil. And look, see, after 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, almost it is now transparent. It's cleaning the oil. And this will be really very good potential to clean the oil in the real situation. Of course, this is the summary of the results that I will not go into each one of them, but we were really able to have a phylogenetic map of prokaryotic diversity in the Mediterranean Sea and Gulf of Aqaba. And this project really is really very good because it provided us with a setup to clean up the strategies and environment protection, which is the Mediterranean Sea from pollutants and Gulf of Aqaba. Now, the other project also, it's in nanotechnology. It's in useful application in water quality. In fact, I have registered a patent with my wonderful team, research team, where we prepared magnetic nanoparticles for the use in fast detection and removal of pathogenic bacteria from water resources. These are the magnetic nanoparticles that we prepared. They are just from, waste of fly ash collected from chimneys of iron and steel factories. They really didn't cost us much. And we tested these magnetic nanoparticles on their ability to, if they could really attach to bacterial cells. This is, for example, Salmonella, one of the pathogenic bacteria, without treating it with our preparation of magnetic nanoparticles. And this is when we mix them with only 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. See how the black dots are the magnetic nanoparticles. They were, trapped. They were attracted to the bacterial cell as if they were food for the bacteria. For us, it was really wonderful because they are magnetic, so we put like a magnet on the side of the tube. And in this way, it's like mechanically, we trapped all the bacteria that were attached to the magnetic nanoparticle. And in a way, if you just imagine, we clean the water, and we really proved that. We tested them on also wastewater and gray water. And when we analyze what is left in the water after we collect bacteria with the magnetic nanoparticle, there were like a tremendous reduction in the total coliform, or the bacteria that were in the water sample, even wastewater or gray water. It's almost 10 to the 3-fold reduction. Of course, there are more details, but I'm just giving you a brief, of what we have. The other project that I have done also, which is still doing, is again testing the microbes in harsh environment. As you look at the other first one, which is the pollution, the bacteria were clever. They were the smartest organisms on Earth. They are really able to adapt to harsh stress environment by, of course, mutation in their genes, so like the oil and hydrocarbons, you saw that project. And this is another project, the hot springs. We have several hot springs in Jordan, and I'm talking about high temperature, thermal temperature up to 75 degrees centigrade. The objective of this project is to get archaeal population using, of course, conventional microbiological method and cultural independent approaches. And also why to isolate and identify cultivable bacteria that hopefully will be novel, and that's what we really got, organisms for future, of course, biotechnological and industrial and food. Again, samples, mud samples and water samples from these hot springs. We have done chemical, physiological, microbiological analysis, see, this is what we've got. Some of them are a beautiful color. I consider them my baby. They are not harmful, by the way. They are not pathogenic for the human. We tested these. And we've done also molecular PCR. I know you know what's PCR because everybody was doing PCR tests during Corona. So it's a molecular method to look for specific genes for these microbes. And we've got a lot of these microbes. We were able to culture them, like 132 of thermophilic bacteria, meaning these bacteria were able to adapt to this harsh environment, which is very high temperature. I mean, nobody could live, no organism could live at temperature 75 or 80 degrees. It's very hot. And it means that they have enzymes that enable them, to tolerate and adapt to this condition. Some of them were able also to tolerate salt environment, salt conditions, and the one that we isolated, and even acidic, very low pH. Of course, for us, I have these, as I said, so many very useful, good application industry and in food industry, in environment, in biotechnology. The third project, which is running now, is microbial life on Earth, outer space. Imagine, because I said if these microbes could live, could adapt to harsh environments like, polluted area, hot environments, thermal, even very salt environment, then outer space is another harsh environment because there is, UV radiation, there is microgravity, fluctuations in temperature, and so on. And we collaborated. I'm in fact the leader of this project, but we collaborated with the KSF Space Foundation that have offices in USA and UK because they have the space balloon facility. So the question was asked here that are there life, on space? And the most beautiful model that you could really use to answer this question are microbes, because I proved to you that they were able to live, in harsh environment. And, it's bacteria is one cell. But as to our knowledge, till now, there is no proof yet of an extraterrestrial microbial life that has been found naturally. I mean, they are not naturally present there. But the question that we were asking in our project, whether Earth bacteria, the bacteria that we have in our planet on Earth, do they survive in extreme space condition? So what we have done, and I will show you, we deliberately exposed these microbes to space in a space balloon or space capsule. Now, we expect that they will not be able to grow, okay? Or a mutation could happen in their genes to make them able to grow. And guess what? We were really fascinated with the results. So a couple of questions we asked when we done this project, like, for example, to understand the role of gravity at the cell level, survival factors in space, and the likelihood, interplanetary transport of microbes. Understanding changes in bacterial behavior in space could help really us protect the astronaut from infection during, future long space flight missions. Also, characterization and analyzing microbial responses to various space environment risk factors will really shed light on if there is possibility of life on space, and possible also risks to humans in space. Microbes will provide a model system for that. And we already have done this experiment now. We really put the bacterial strains. I use like 4 types of bacteria that are known, and their genomic DNA samples. We prepared them and we put them in the space box that is made of special material to avoid UV and radiation effect on these bacterial cells. So the only variable will be the microgravity, and that's what I wanted to test. So they were really placed here, in the top of the space capsule, and samples were sent to space capsule from United Kingdom station up to 33 kilometers above the sea level, which is stratosphere. And then next day were when they came back from outer space to Earth, they were sent to us directly, and we have done several analyses here in our lab. And right now, as I tell, I will make this surprise for you, because I'm now with my team writing the paper with the very, very interesting results. Amazing. They were able to grow. Imagine some of them. They were living happily when they came back, which means there is a mutation happened in their genes. And we analyzed this at the gene level, and it proves, yes, that made them able to grow, and tolerate space conditions. And with this, now could say that, biotechnology and nanotechnology really are doing wonder, and their applications are really applied to all, the SDGs. No poverty, no hunger, good health. And for example, for me, it's in the life on land, life below water. In fact, it's everything, because we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about gender. By the way, most of the graduate students that work with me are females, So also, they are really excellent scientists. So with this, I would really, because I don't want to exceed the time, but I will say really thank you so much. And I will be available during the conference to, collaborate and integrate and discuss any ideas or comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hanan. That was such incredible information for all of us to think about. The stats you provided to the research projects you're doing, it really shows, well, especially females. Women need to be at school learning. The work you're doing is absolutely incredible. This is not just for us. I think especially thinking about the Islamic states and what's going on in Afghanistan and Iran. Women, girls need to get their education so we can have more amazing, incredible women like you doing this kind of work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in this really important conference. And I will be available for help or assistance for anybody, students, scientists from all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The theme of Power of Women embodies collaboration through edutainment across diasporas, through the collectives alliances that support positive global change.
Robin, thank you so much for joining the Power of Women Digital Conference today. And thank you for being here and guiding us. You're going to be guiding us through a breath work. And please take the floor and please set us up for the rest of the International Digital Conference you're going to be hosting for the next 48 hours.
Thank you so much, Shanali. Yes, warm welcome to the international human family of conscious co-creators for this movement. It's an honor to invite us into our experience with our breath today. In my own experience, we have learned how intrinsic this balance between the sacred divine feminine and the divine masculine is when we connect our in-breath and our out-breath. Essentially, we are the elements. And we are this alchemy of the co-creation of life itself, the regenerative power of nature herself. And so I just would like to remind us of some of the intrinsic qualities and the science of our breathing. There's many different ways to breathe, and many of the techniques of breath that have been shared internationally have been more meditative in nature. And today I'll be guiding us into just our own natural experience of unifying spirit and body. And what happens in our system when we receive the breath is we're upgrading our chemistry. It influences our glandular system. It starts to bring in this natural regenerative power, like a tree grows, like the ocean regenerates itself, And I've noticed how familiar we are with the masculine nature of doing and achieving. And the main quality that we're learning in our evolution is the softness, the gentleness of surrender, surrendering to what already is as our true nature. And part of this journey of self-realization is coming up against the patterns of resistance of the old programs of needing to achieve, or coming up against the ideas that we're not good enough or life is not in balance. And so I'm simply here to remind us of the intrinsic balance that is our nature. And when we look at the elementals of earth, water, fire, and air, we realize that we are these elementals. And the breath itself brings this alchemy back into harmony in our system. So the main quality that we've discovered in nervous system regulation particularly is the quality of the relaxation response. And many techniques of breathing are intrinsically training us to control in some way. There's a mistranslation that if we control the breath, we control the mind. And what I've noticed is that there is plenty of unconscious control happening in our bodies. And so if we can actually relinquish control and free up the breath in a very natural way, we find that there's a much more gentle, relaxed unification that happens, where we're not manipulating or getting in the way of this intrinsic nature. And so it's quite simple, but it can seem like it's not easy when we're coming up against some of these unconscious qualities of how we live, because our breath is our fundamental relationship with life. And so as we drop into this fundamental unifying force of receiving and relaxing, we might start to feel some fear or some agitation. And to be able to allow for our feeling nature to continue to upwell. And when we come up against this resistance, again, the main quality is acceptance of what we are feeling. And as we use our attention to continue to unify these forces, the main quality of relaxation is really also about coherence between the frequencies and the speed of the brain, the vibrational frequency of the heart, which is interconnected with the Earth's electromagnetic frequency that essentially is pulsing at the Schumann hertz, which is around 7.5 cycles per second. And generally our brain is very fast when we're focusing outwards. We're in more of a beta frequency in the brain. And so it actually takes a very short period of time to self-regulate in a way that slows the brain down. So we can simply come back to our true nature of balance and harmony. The other invitation that we like to bring, that you're welcome to explore as you drop into your breath today, is the sound healing nature of our voice. Because everyone has a harmonic instrument of resonance in their voice. And if we come up against anything that feels dissonant in our electromagnetic field, to use our voice to tone or create the sound of God in many cultures, the ah sound of the heart, for example, whether it's Yahweh, Krishna, Buddha, God, the sound of ah is the vibration of the heart. So at times, if you feel any dissonance, just feel free to express yourself. So I'm wanting to take the opportunity and the honor of dropping us into our breathing, just inviting the viewers and the presenters, this whole collective human family, to find a relaxed place and settle into the body. And just beginning by unifying the in-breath and the out-breath, breathing in and out of the nose. Placing attention here on the natural upwelling, the tidal rhythm, and softening. On the in-breath, we're receiving the earth frequencies from our mother, sending her power into our body. And without a pause, just relaxing and softening. Inviting freedom in the throat and in the jaw, so there's softness in the body. You may find that there's 3 to 5 counts in on your in-breath, and 3 to 5 counts out. And just letting your breath be natural and free. And organically here, allowing for some aliveness to come in as you contribute to your breathing. And surrender and trust to soften the body on each out breath. As we continue to breathe, allow for an inner smile as your radiance begins to turn up the frequency in your body. At the core of your conscious creating, you are an alchemist. Just simply receiving to be fulfilled by this regenerative power of the mother herself, nature herself. And as the breath moves here without a pause, the top of the breath turning to fall, the bottom of the breath turning to rise again, and becoming a channel of this fundamental relationship and alignment. Your energy becomes centered in deep positivity and shimmering abundance. Allowing for this alchemy and alignment with these elementals, synchronizing with the Earth's electromagnetic field. Feeling the brain, the heart, and the earth. Noticing the influence of your circulation, the water element in the body. Receiving the fullness of whom and what we really are. We feel the prosperity of our own co-creative choices. And how we deserve these miracles. We know this, we feel good about this. And we're creating the time and space to receive this, to cultivate and circulate this. giving out our breath, we're receiving. And in receiving, we have more to give. This is the perfect circle. This is the only guidance you need for what you're becoming. Continue to receive it and relax into it. Giving thanks. Becoming the evolutionary impulse of this forever now as our future. A future of right relationship and sustainability. Regenerative harmony and balance between all nations. This is our life. This is our living, evolving prayer made manifest. Can you notice how available this regenerative power is and accessible to all beings? We belong to life and life belongs to us. And we simply breathe what we already are, what's already the case. Continue to place your attention here just on receiving and relaxing. An upwelling and a letting go. The in-breath sustains life. The out-breath purifies life. This is how the oceans and the forests, the trees are in continual renewal. So we say hallelujah to the fires bringing forth the ancient seeds. And we give thanks to the waters bringing new life. Nourishing what we bleed, what we feel. Bringing a new time of peace, purification, and awakening. We celebrate today as one human family. Continuing to breathe, feel the jai of the Great Mother, who establishes our shared foundation, constantly giving, nourishing, regenerating. Notice if you feel your breath deep in your belly, rising into the chest. So all parts of yourself are opening and softening now. Unifying in breath and out breath. We unify above and below, male and female. Returning to oneness, to wholeness. We give thanks for this life-giving power that we are, that we share. Just enjoying a few more deep breaths here. And feel free to share your voice. All our relations. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hello, everyone. We hope that you all are enjoying the Power of Women Digital Conference. We want to hear from you and interact with you. We want your voice to be heard. And all you have to do is grab your phone, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code to participate and share your thoughts through our polling questions. And stay tuned, because later in the broadcast, we will have a digital town hall discussion on all the results. And I will let the speaker take it from here.
Now I have 3 questions for you. Question 1. What does the next phase of our sustainable existence look like on this planet? Question 2. How can you contribute? And question 3. Can you see the breath? Can you see that the breath is an unlimited resource that is accessible to all beings, and what does that mean for you?
We have the pleasure of having Marie Dennis joining us today. Marie is the Senior Director of Pax Christi International's Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. Marie will be speaking to us about peace and nonviolence through her work with the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. Hi, Marie. Welcome to the Power of Women Digital Conference. It's so great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. By the end of 2022, 108.4 million people had been forcibly displaced worldwide, displaced by the violence of war and terrorism, the violence of unjust economies and poverty, the violence of environmental destruction, and on and on. That is an increase of 19 million compared with the end of 2021, and 2.5 times the number from a decade ago. They are on the move in droves, claiming their right to a more dignified life, opting for the profoundly nonviolent action of moving on, and yet encountering unrelenting violence every step of the way. One immigrant from Venezuela who recently stayed overnight with the community where I live told us about a family he met crossing the Darien Gap from Colombia to Panama. As they crossed a dangerous river, their young child slipped from their arms and drowned. In despair, the parents ended their own lives. The United Nations reminds us that structural injustices, inequalities, and emerging human rights challenges are putting peaceful and inclusive societies further out of reach. To meet Goal 16 of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, a shift from the logic of violence that is provoking such deep human suffering to a logic of nonviolence is urgently needed. Not only is such a shift essential, but recent empirical research demonstrates that nonviolent strategies are powerful and effective. I actually believe that humanity is on the threshold of a new way of being, a new paradigm, a new logic for life, and that embracing nonviolence will help us move in that direction. Nonviolence is, but is not only about war and peace, not only about pulling back from the brink of human and ecological destruction. It is a spirituality, a way of life, a global ethic, and a spectrum of powerful and proven effective approaches to preventing or interrupting violence and to promoting a more just and peaceful world. This new nonviolent paradigm is based on a completely different understanding of our place as humans in the whole Earth community, latecomers as we are to the spectacular cosmic reality that we are just now beginning to see, thanks to the Hubble and the Webb telescopes and other amazing scientific discoveries. Author and theologian Elia Delio talks about the new person emerging in evolution who is embracing pluralities of gender, race, and religion, who is called into a new type of consciousness where things are first seen together and then as distinct within this togetherness. We are being rewired for belonging to the cosmic whole. We are more and more aware, she says, that we are one Earth community. In other words, we humans are beginning to shift from dominating and extracting to reciprocity, living with, respecting. Michael Nagler, founder of the Meta Center for Nonviolence in California, talks about the new story that is replacing the old story told by the dominant white culture about scarcity, competition, and violence. He insists that violence is not the nature of humans, that love, faith, trust, and desire for community, peace, and well-being are central to our identity, and that nonviolence is a creative power, a pervasive energy, a fundamental principle that we can develop and deploy in human interactions. That is the nature of the nonviolence that we all need to embrace. It is a new way of thinking that could guide the world, including in times of crisis, toward just peace rather than justified war, toward respect and inclusion rather than exploitation, toward reciprocity and solidarity. Our commitment should be to a nonviolence that imitates the way of Jesus and Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Lema Gabawi, and so many others, but that is also challenged and shaped by the history and contemporary experience of those now on the receiving end of war and racism, neglect, and planetary destruction. It is not just not violent, but it is powerful and actively engaged in preventing or interrupting the violence that is embedded in our world. The nonviolence that I'm describing is a more accurate, expanded, and evidence-based as well as comprehensive. It is much more than pacifism. It is capable of mobilizing a wide spectrum of tools for change, from nonviolent diplomacy to trauma-informed healing, restorative justice to nonviolent civilian protection, civil resistance to nonviolent communication, and on and on. Even with so much divisive rhetoric and violence around the world, I see this shift is happening everywhere. I know thousands of people, whole communities, who are giving their lives to making this new story real. I see it in brilliant work to root out systemic racism, to end the death penalty and mass incarceration, to redress centuries of oppression against indigenous communities, to break habits of exploitation that are destroying the earth, to learn and promote restorative justice practices, to welcome migrants and refugees, to rid the world of nuclear weapons, to celebrate diversity and promote unwavering inclusion and respects for the rights of all people, to fundamentally rework national and local budget priorities to invest in nonviolence research, nonviolence formation, education, and training. I see a shift also in the intense process of discernment yet underway to imagine and promote effective nonviolent ways to end the brutal Russian invasion of Ukraine, as difficult as that is to imagine, and to heal the wounds of that brutal war. I see it in courageous, remarkable nonviolence in action across Ukraine, where many Ukrainians have been demonstrating clearly and with great courage that nonviolent defense can be effective and could be much more readily available with significant investment in resources, training, and research. An astoundingly widespread interest in nonviolence as an orientation and a universal ethic is beginning to come into focus worldwide. We see less of an inclination to dismiss nonviolence as naive, unrealistic, and a more serious effort to imagine a shift from the logic of violence to the logic of nonviolence. We are seeing more clearly that the cry of the earth and the suffering of the creatures living on this planet are intrinsically interconnected with human violence, including the cultural violence of indifference and domination, the direct violence of war and militarization, and the economic violence of destructive, unaccountable extractive projects or unsustainable consumption-driven lifestyles. Nonviolence is much more than a political strategy. It is a spirituality through which we see and interpret life, a set of virtues and principles for personal and social transformation. But it is also a political strategy. The issues we face, the challenges we face are intertwined, interconnected at a root-deep level. For example, persistent poverty and the huge gap between the very rich and the many impoverished are connected as cause and consequence to war and violent conflict, and both are connected, again, as cause and consequence to environmental destruction and climate change. Either we will continue to live our way into the new story of right relationships and commit to developing and scaling up diverse, powerful, nonviolent tools to provide protection and genuine security, or we will remain stuck in the old story that violence and war are inevitable.
Marie, thank you for reminding us that we are one Earth community and that love, peace, and well-being are essential to our being. Indeed, we must cultivate a new way of thinking and reshaping the current narrative of humanity. Our commitment to nonviolence is imperative. Thank you so much, Marie, for sharing your insights and your work through Pax Christi International's Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. It was a pleasure, Marie, to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We hope that you all are enjoying the Power of Women Digital Conference. We want to hear from you and interact with you. We want your voice to be heard. And all you have to do is grab your phone, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code to participate and share your thoughts through our polling questions. And stay tuned, because later in the broadcast, we will have a digital town hall discussion on all the results. And I will let the speaker take it from here.
I do have some questions for the audience. What examples of nonviolence can you describe from your own experience? In this talk, what caught your attention or made you think? Do you agree or not that humanity is on the threshold of a new way of being, a new paradigm, a new logic for life that embraces nonviolence?
women from the world, distinguished guests, fellow women and girls advocates, I am truly honored to present to you today at the Power of Women Conference to reflect on a purposeful topic that aspires to ignite the rise of the girl's wisdom. I am here to talk about girls' empowerment through initiation with embodied education. I'd like to invite you to explore the power of girls' initiations through a transformative coming-of-age experience enriched with an embodied education, an education that integrates body, mind, emotion, and spirit. Do you know the power of initiation? Throughout history, cultures around the world recognize the significance of the transition from girlhood to womanhood. Initiation ceremonies, often celebrated at the menarche, the first menstrual period, marked a pivotal moment in a young girl's life, a passage into maturity, responsibility, and a deeper connection with her own self. In various cultures, these sacred spaces were designed to nurture and guide young girls towards becoming women. Through, for example, the initiation in a red tent, a girl learned from older women about the blood mysteries and received a deep understanding of her place in the world. And at the Apache sunrise ceremony, which persists in our days, a young girl is engaged in deeply symbolic and ritualized activities, and it is believed to be provided with special blessings. But where are the initiation spaces in our modern times? In Mexico, with the syncretism of indigenous and Catholic influences, young women celebrate their quinceañera celebration when they turn 15. A Mexican girl reaffirms her faith and receives blessings from her community. Although, due to the stigma that surrounds menstruation and women's sexuality, she would likely stay unaware of the nature of the changes she is experiencing and disconnected from the hormonal awakening taking place in her body. On the other hand, the education system leaves important aspects of menstrual education overlooked. In a national survey conducted in 2022 in Mexico, 69% of girls reported they had little or no information when they had their first period. In today's fast-paced world, the essence of the initiation ceremonies has faded. Young girls entering puberty are often met with confusion, embarrassment, and rejection as the rich tapestry of tradition of the woman's worth and power has been lost. We're confronted with a harsh reality. Girls lack spaces where they can be initiated, not only into the realm of the feminine gifts, but also into the infallible knowledge of the menstrual cycle, its physiological wonders, and its relationship to the earth, the moon, and all the creation. We cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that many girls in our societies reach adulthood disassociated from their bodies, without fertility awareness and not embracing their menstrual cycles. The period stigma persists because we lack culturally established spaces to celebrate it and recognize its significance. But there is hope. Can you imagine a world where every girl is empowered through an initiation with education? I began my journey teaching menstrual education in local schools in 2016, and I soon realized that I needed more than a class to offer girls not just important menstrual health and anatomy knowledge, but to open the doors for them to their own inner embodied wisdom. I'm thankful for my personal involvement through women's circles and for the traditional knowledge that has been passed to me by the abuelas, the wise ones. The woman's path gave me ancestral and valuable tools to create and hold a special space to teach, a girl's circle, an intentional container to bring to the present the lost rites of passage that celebrate girls' physical transformation and also to impart life-changing knowledge. Understanding the importance of embodied education, which involves experiential learning for girls, I created Wise Girls, or Niñas Sabias, and developed a 10-hour program for schools and communities to initiate girls into the worth, wisdom, and power. Wise Girls also train women to become Wise Girls teachers so the girls' circle can be recreated everywhere. In Mexico alone, over 3,000 girls have received this culturally sensitive education on menstrual health, body literacy, and cycle awareness knowledge. There are currently more than 100 Wise Girls teachers in Spanish-speaking countries, and the program is taught in rural schools and indigenous territories in Mexico and Costa Rica. Our methodology recognizes the importance of context, emotion, and personal experience in the process of acquiring knowledge. We adapt to each environment and honor its cultural wisdom, and we teach the incredible anatomical and physiological science of the women's bodies in an engaging, interactive, memorable way for girls to cherish throughout their lives. Here in Chapala, Mexico, I have become the menstrual fairy in my community. I love finding girls in the street and having them telling me their menstrual stories and give me the most precious love and appreciation. Last week, I stepped upon Dulce. She's now 17, but she was 13 when she became a Wise Girl with the program. We saw each other and hugged joyously. She told me she was beginning to study to become a teacher. She said, "I always remember what you gave us. Look at me. I have grown up. I am going to the university. I am so proud." I believe every community should have a menstrual educator, an initiation godmother for girls. Can you imagine what a Wise Girl circle would look like in your own community? During the Wise Girls workshop, we sing Wise Girl songs, we draw, we dance in circle, and we make a play about the menstrual cycle, where the protagonists are the 4 wise hormones that cause ovulation, or the jump of the chosen egg. We are recovering the initiation spaces to enrich girls' minds, hearts, and souls. We believe that this education forms the bedrock of self-love and self-advocacy and provides a solid foundation upon which girls can build their dreams. Wonderful audience, knowing the profound impact that immersive learning experiences can have on empowering the women of tomorrow, let us remember that we're shaping not just individuals, but the world at large. Let's advocate for educational initiation spaces for girls as a crucial step toward their self-efficacy, their self-direction, and their embodied empowerment. Let us champion the awakening of girls' innate wisdom so that their light can illuminate the path to a brighter future for all. Thank you.
We have the pleasure of having Natalia Fernandez. Natalia is the founder and CEO of Period, a premenstrual mental health education platform with a mission to educate, empower, and transform those that bleed. Natalia will be speaking to us today on health and healing around the world. Natalia, welcome to the Power of Women Digital Conference. It's so nice to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Okay, so healing around the world. So this is my story of traveling the globe to heal the root of a chronic medical condition. So I'll get into exactly what that chronic medical condition is in just a moment. So the diagnosis. So back in 2020, I was living in Scotland, and I was in a beautiful countryside in the Scotland where they're, creating whiskey, and it's just an absolutely lovely place to be. And so because the nature of my work is digital, I was able to be part of the patient insight panel for the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders. So my advocacy role in the premenstrual health space enabled me to have this wonderful opportunity to contribute to ongoing research about PMDD. So what is PMDD? So PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It was something that I was diagnosed in 2017 when I was living in Spain. And at that point, I had no idea what it was. I knew that it was severe PMS, basically, through a Google search, and that's how I found PMDD. But I didn't know a lot about how to treat it, right? And my dad, being a functional medicine doctor, I actually turned to him a few years after my diagnosis when I noticed that, well, he's kind of healing a lot of people. He has a background in fertility and OBGYN. And so so this is how I was able to start treating it. But after the diagnosis and after having this experience in 2020 with the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders, there was this one survey that indicated to me that there was something more that I missed about my PMDD. And it led me to an incredible journey and discovery, not only of what PMDD can mean for many people, but how it's specifically related to me and my story. So premenstrual dysphoric disorder can oftentimes be triggered by trauma. And so what I realized in this week that they sent out trauma and PMDD, we had to fill out this whole survey, right? This was part of the research. And I discovered that there was this past trauma from a previous relationship of mine that actually was the trigger point of my PMDD. And this was something that completely rattled me. It was something that was right in our subconscious mind, but it didn't become conscious until that point in time. And it was very overwhelming. And for me, it made me realize, oh my goodness, like PMD, like it's not just about treating it through these conventional methods, right? Like we had to look more into these integrative and holistic ways because it was impacting more than just the physical health, right? PMDD is all about mental health and not feeling yourself 2 weeks out of the month leading up to your period. So as I had this diagnosis, I understood the traumas that were surfacing. I decided that I needed to leave Scotland and go to a place for more healing, right? So I went to one of the most famous places in the world when it comes to healing, and that was in Bali in Indonesia. So there I was able to create a whole new relationship with myself and with my menstrual cycle. So in Bali, it's actually quite common to ask your female friends, oh, what day are you on, right? And what are they referring to? They're actually referring to what day are you on in your menstrual cycle. Because the beautiful thing about women and those that bleed is that we are not the same at all given any day of the month, right? We are constantly shifting and changing. And because our moods can shift so severely with PMDD, you oftentimes don't feel yourself, right? So Bali was an amazing opportunity to see this action in practice, right? These people that have embodied this very mature, very, very developed sense of femininity. And so I decided to get off of birth control. That was a huge, scary thing for me, but I did it in Bali, and I was very well supported there from all of the people and all of the therapies that are available on that island. I also was embracing my womanhood. I also redefined a more sustainable, supportive, and holistic form of feminism. Because, you know, I got my undergrad in political science, right? So I had a very specific idea of what it meant to be a feminist and what it meant to be empowering females. But again, with this more integrative and more gender equity perspective of things, I realized, oh my gosh, we are so different than our male counterparts. And that's something that should not only be celebrated and noticed, but something that we need to create even more of honoring of in our day-to-day. So as I gathered so many techniques and things that I could use to help me with my PMDD, now is the time for more integration and more healing. So after I was in Bali, a few months after, I went to Mauritius, which is an island off the coast of Africa. So part of PMDD and what can trigger it is stress, right? So I was able to establish these amazing morning routines, right? Like adding like a matcha tea ceremony in my morning routine. I was able to get active in the very beginning of the day instead of the evening to help with my cortisol levels, are also known as stress, right? So I was able to nourish myself with foods through an elimination diet, very non-inflammatory foods. I was able to really work and target and repairing my gut health, which is in functional medicine is known as if you repair the gut, you can help heal your mental health so much. And so digging into spirituality. So in Mauritius, they are so wonderful about celebrating Hinduism, right? So much of the population is Hindu. So also learning about different ways of holding ceremony, how we can create offerings in our day-to-day, and seeing that in this culture, I believe that I saw the world's largest Shiva temple, I want to say, and it was absolutely stunning. And so this is just another way of me finding more holistic ways to heal from this chronic medical condition, because I understood not only the mental and the emotional, but then I was digging into the spiritual side of functional medicine or integrative medicine. And then nature as medicine. I learned how to scuba dive. I learned how to surf. Doing these things that incorporated so much joy and finding things that for me brought joy was a huge, huge, huge aspect of my healing. And so a lot of people say, right, nature is medicine. And it is true. Like when you're looking at a blue body of water, that can actually help relax your body. It's scientifically proven, right? So nature can be so inspiring, and it can be so it's something that can ground us, right? And water is something that is very grounding as well. So turning to nature as medicine has been a very big part of my integration and healing process. And then so finding my life purpose. So after I was in Mauritius, then I started my European travels after some time. So I was in Berlin, I was in Dubai, I went to the homeland of my family, which is Cuba. And I was so honored to be stepping on the same streets that my father once stepped in when he was a child back in the late 1960s before he moved to the US. I also was in Switzerland. I was attracting these amazing healers everywhere I went. So of course I ended up staying with these amazing healers in this beautiful part of Switzerland. And I was again introduced to so many alternative therapies that really helped me heal from the root. I was also in Christiansfeld, and that picture there, that's in Denmark. I used to live in Denmark. And then one of the biggest parts of my travel was actually visiting India. It was quite spontaneous. I went on a Himalayan Kriya yoga retreat there. And what happened and why this title, why the slide is titled Finding My Purpose, is because through all of this and through all of my suffering, I understood that this suffering wasn't just for me to become more wise, right? the purpose behind all of this traveling and all the suffering was also because I realized that this healing was part of my purpose, not just of my own purpose, but to help others heal, right? And so I was able to discover so many techniques that I could share with others, right? I could hold space for others. I could understand their suffering, and I could read them on a more deeper level and it's a gift, right? It's a gift that I discovered that I had, but it was through these travels that I understood, okay, I'm getting confirmation that this is my life purpose, to help empower the world and the people that bleed inside of the world and to help honor them. And so this is how it leads me right into living in my life purpose. I understood that I love to cook. That's something that I've been doing since I was a little kid, like 11 years old. And I thought I was the next Rachel Ray. So when you figure out what you're good at, right, where your gifts lie, then you can start to also bring back those same wants and desires that you had when you were a kid. So it created this beautiful ensemble of realizing, wow, like I love to cook, but I can help people heal through cooking. They're amazing, supportive, nourishing meals, right? Functional medicine was another aspect of it too. So I'm able as a functional medicine certified health coach, I can help others in their healing journey by helping especially with that behavior change. And then finally with spirituality, I'm able to tap into the gifts that I have to help other people understand where are those blockages in their body? What could they focus on? And how could we heal specifically on those parts of the body, right, to help the overall health and wellness? So a lot of this was discovering myself, but also realizing with Period, it's my life purpose, but it's also my company's purpose to heal the world one period at a time. So thank you all so much for being here, sharing this space with me. It's been an absolute honor, and I honor you for taking part of such a conscious and beautiful conference. So thank you.
Natalia, that was so amazing. Thank you for sharing your story and sharing with us how it led to finding your passion, which is service to others. And also thank you for offering us practical solutions for healing by weaving holistic approaches and incorporating nature so that we can heal and also find alternative medication. It was such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome.
This song is for my mama, yeah. Esamba kichingo richi mama, kugira ngo umenye ishimwe riri mu mutima wanje. Nibyishi wakoze kugira ngo mbaho wabwiwe nabi na benshi imbaraga z'umutima yo zirutisa amaboko yo ko wicaye mu ntebe y'ababiri uyuzura mu rumwe yari ifite amaguru abiri wayibereye ukwa gatatu yicaramo sinayirima ayi mama. What we call you, mama, mighty woman, warrior, blessed woman, yeah, peaceful at the same time. You're a fighter, mama. You're a giver, not a receiver. Forgive and tell me, mama, how you do that? How you do that? Hey, can I get more? Bless my mama. Igwe Oluwa, thank you for my mama. Oh, mama. Mama, I love you so much. So much. Mama, mama, I love you so much. So much. So much, mama, I love you so much, I love you so much, thank you, Olúwa.
Today, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Joni Dietrich, also known as Rajashri Ma, joining us today. Dr. Dietrich is the founder and a master teacher of the Wisdom School, home of Kali Ki Reiki. And today she'll be speaking to us about psychological well-being, healing yourself, healing the planet, and how self-help helps all of us. Hello, Dr. Dietrich. Welcome to the Power of Women Digital Conference. We are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Ashley. I am absolutely delighted to be here. And I extend a loving welcome to each one of you who's taking the time for yourself today to be here with us. Now, it's interesting, though. While I can offer loving greetings to you, the question is, can you greet yourself with love? Can you welcome yourself into being present here and now? You know, as women, we so often put ourselves out there to help others before we help ourselves. We're loving beings who naturally want to give, care for, and support those we love. We feel responsible for the well-being of our children, our families, our partners, our businesses, and our world. When we don't live up to our own expectations, we can become unkind, judging, and unloving to ourselves. Many of us have a long history of self-loathing, and we blame ourselves for not doing enough, not being good enough, and not deserving anyone's love, least of all our own. In devaluing ourselves, how could we possibly consider, let alone have time for, putting ourselves first and loving ourselves? Wouldn't that just prove that we are selfish instead of selfless? You know, the airlines are right when they tell us to put our own oxygen mask on before assisting others. No matter how much we love someone, we cannot be of true service when we are gasping for air ourselves. Yet, in our everyday lives, many of us walk around short of breath. It may not be from lack of oxygen at altitude, but shallow breathing is a sign of stress, a result of paddling too hard and exhausting ourselves just trying to stay afloat amid all our responsibilities. That was certainly the case for me when my children were young and I was a busy practicing psychologist. I'd get monster migraines from putting my clients first, working until late in the evening, and missing my kids' bedtimes. Eventually, to cope with and heal the migraines, I began practicing yoga and meditation. You know, the migraines went away and I felt much better. But even though my husband was home with the kids, I still felt guilty, and terribly selfish about all those evening yoga classes. But then one evening, after I'd been away for a week-long yoga retreat and feeling terribly guilty about that, I asked my 7-year-old if it bothered him that I was always going to yoga. Dylan looked at me with wise, ancient eyes and said, "Mommy, when you do yoga, you're a better mommy." That's when I finally got the message, the same message I'd been preaching to others, that our own oxygen mask really needs to go on first. And in taking care of and loving myself, I was not only a better mommy, but also a better wife, a better therapist, and really a better presence in the world. You know, there's a naturalness to helping others when we feel balanced, whole, and healthy. When we're happy and we love ourselves, we're not putting ourselves beneath those we love. Rather, we see each other as co-equal beings, all of whom need love and care. Coming from a balanced, harmonious state of being, we think more clearly, communicate more effectively, and are more likely to do for others exactly what they need without depleting our own inner resources. We become like a beacon or a transmitter of that love and that happiness. In contrast, when we're stressed, depleted, and in a one-down place of self-judgment and loathing, we're much more likely to misconstrue others' words and needs. We can get argumentative. We may even impose help on them that's unwanted or unnecessary, just because we're trying to please or fit in. We get caught up in unhealthy negative thought and behavior cycles and miss out on the joys of being a loving presence. In my case, when I got caught up in the need to take better care of my clients than myself, I became a crabbier mom and was less fun to be around. And I wasn't being much of a self-care role model to either my clients or my kids. What we don't realize is when we truly love ourselves, we become a kind of force, even a powerhouse of loving energy. In Kali Ki Reiki, we talk about that force as the love force, the power of our true self, our true being. And when we can feel that within ourselves and come from a place of true self-love, so much less effort is required to assist others. Love, kindness, calmness, clarity, and understanding, they begin to radiate from us naturally. We don't have to work so hard at trying to please. Rather, we become a pleasing presence. And that presence ripples out to those we love and into the entire world. This positive contagion requires no effort on our part other than to just be as we are. So, how do we begin to love ourselves? I promised 3 techniques, but the first 2 are easy and probably familiar to you. So for the sake of brevity, I'm only going to mention them. But the first is, whenever you can, immerse yourself in beauty. Practice self-healing techniques such as Reiki, meditation, yoga. Take care of yourself. 2, when you do begin to go into overdrive, slow down, breathe, and do or think of those things that give you energy and joy. And then wait. Wait until you feel calmer before getting back into the ring. These are great strategies. We all need to employ them. But here's the one I really want you to work with. It's a kind of guided meditation. So take a moment now, make sure you're comfortable, close your eyes, and bring conscious attention to your breath, slowing the breath down. And now begin to imagine yourself as if you were your only child. Seriously, picture yourself like a child being held in the arms of the mother. You are both the child and the mother. Yourself holding yourself. See your child's unblinking eyes looking up at you with unconditional love, trusting that you will provide all the comfort, all the nurturance the child seeks. Now, gaze back at your child's self, with eyes of the loving mother, offering your child unequivocal compassion, love, support, and reassurance. Be compassionate with yourself, seeing yourself as the beloved child of a mother who always forgives, encourages, protects, and does what she can to help you on your path. Love yourself as yourself. Welcome yourself with love into your own arms and the arms of the world.
Wow.
If this meditation is hard for you to do, I suggest that you practice it again, but maybe alternate between seeing yourself sometimes as the child and sometimes as the mother. Keep sending love back and forth through your breath and your eyes until you can experience you and your child self as one beloved being.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Dr. Dietrich, thank you for that guided meditation and for reminding us of the importance of being balanced and giving ourselves love, experiencing self-love. Thank you for pointing to simple and practical solutions to be a more balanced, whole, and happy being. And ultimately, thank you for all of your insights that you shared with us today and your story. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. I really appreciate having this opportunity and to share what I can with those who are struggling sometimes with self-love and making it hard for people to be their true selves in the world.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. We hope that you all are enjoying the Power of Women Digital Conference. We want to hear from you and interact with you. We want your voice to be heard. And all you have to do is grab your phone, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code to participate and share your thoughts through our polling questions. And stay tuned, because later in the broadcast, we will have a digital town hall discussion on all the results. And I will let the speaker take it from here.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions for those of you watching to ponder. The first one, describe a time when you got so busy helping others you forgot to put your own oxygen mask on. What happened, and what would you do differently next time? So the next question for you to contemplate, can you love yourself like you are your only child? Can you love yourself like a child unconditionally loves their mother? If not, are you willing to slow down and practice self-love? finally, do you agree that self-love and self-healing make a difference in the world? Tell us how you see it.
We have the pleasure of having Lori Ball joining us. Lori is the Executive Director of Senia International, a nonprofit organization advocating for inclusion by empowering educators, parents, and professionals through conferences and coursework. Today, she'll be speaking to us on education, championing inclusion, by sharing her story, a mother's journey advocating for schools to embrace learners with special needs. Welcome to the Power of Women Digital Conference, Lori. It's so great to have you today.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. It's great to be here. So, hi, everyone. Again, my name is Lori Bull, and I am going to share my story of raising my son in an international school world and learning to advocate for our schools to become more inclusive. So, our journey starts as international school teachers. My husband and I started our teaching careers in Saipan, really small island near Guam. From there, we went to California, on to Saudi Arabia, to Indonesia, Colorado, China, Thailand, and finally now in Oregon. When I was a young teacher in Saudi Arabia, I had a young student, fourth grade student, who was performing 2 years below her peers in reading and writing. And this student was great. She was part of our class and we loved having her. I made the mistake as a very young, naive teacher in letting my administration know that she was performing this low. And the next thing I knew, she was kicked out. She was kicked out of the school. And that was a wake-up call for me. Understanding that international schools had different rules to play by than our schools in the U.S. did. In the U.S., we have free and appropriate education for individuals with any type of learning needs, and we did not have those same rules internationally. In Saudi as well, I had my two children, Maddie and Braden. And Braden was developing just as a normal baby would up until he was about 12 months old. When he was 11 months old, we moved to Indonesia, where we were teaching at an international school. And we noticed he was not developing like his sister was. He had very few words. He seemed to ignore us a lot. And he rarely looked at us. We knew that an international school setting would not be the best placement for him. And so we moved home to the United States. And that's where Braden was diagnosed with autism and an intellectual developmental delay. During that time, I decided to get my master's degree in special education. Previously, I was an elementary teacher. And I did that because I had no idea what was happening in the world around me. I was going to meetings. They were sharing acronyms. They were talking about therapies our son was getting, and I was clueless. And I thought, I can't live like this. I need to be able to better support him and understand what's happening with him. For a few quick statistics for you, currently, the CDC says that there are 1 in 36 individuals diagnosed on the autism spectrum. 1 in 6 children from ages 2 to 8 have been diagnosed with a mental health, behavioral, or developmental disorder. 7.2% of the population is diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And there's 5 to 15% of individuals diagnosed with a specific learning disability, which includes dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. Heading back to our life, when Braden was about 7 years old, we moved to Shanghai, China, and we I was the principal of a school for children with special needs there. So Brandon and I went to that school, and my husband and my daughter went to a separate international school. These are the models of how children are supported, how children with special needs are supported in school settings. Of course, what we would like is inclusion, and for children to be in the classroom with their typically developing peers. Some models have integration, some exclusion. And what we were in China in our separate school was a segregated model. So we didn't like that. And my husband and I and another family who had a daughter with Down syndrome, we started Shine Academy. And Shine Academy is Shanghai Inclusive Education Academy. And we made that school so children like Olivia and Peyton and Thanos and Olga could attend school together as siblings. Here's our first group of kids at Shine Academy. While in China, I also attended my first Senya conference. And Senya has a simple vision, and that's to live in an inclusive world. There in Senya, I was really inspired by my peeps. I found them, other people who taught individuals with learning disabilities and disabilities in general. So I volunteered to put on the next year's conference, and that following year we started our first board, and so I've been volunteering on the board since then, since about 2010, and our focus is on, again, inclusion. For a little background, there's about 11,000 international schools worldwide. This is from research by the International Schools Research Company. There are about 6 million students in international schools. And they all, for many, many years, our international schools were not inclusive. Slowly, this is changing. But the change, it's not fast enough. If we go back to those prevalence rates, 1 in 36 with autism, 1 in 6 with a mental health or behavioral developmental disorder, ADHD, specific learning disabilities. What that would mean is there's 166,667 students on the spectrum on the autism spectrum in our international schools. Or are they? Are they accepted? On average, our international schools have about 545 students. And if we think of it that way, and just remember that's on average. So some of our schools have 1,800 students, some have 200. But if we go with that average of 545 students, that would mean that there are at least 15 students per school who would be on the autism spectrum, and 82 with a specific learning disability. Now, many of these individuals are undiagnosed. One, diagnosis may be difficult to obtain in another country, and 2, because some parents are afraid to share the diagnosis with the school, assuming the school will not accept their child. Back to our story. Soon we moved to Thailand and Bangkok, Thailand, and that's where I started a program at an international school, Bangkok, for children with higher support needs. And this is the first of its kind in the region. And since then, more and more international schools are serving this population of students. So it's been an encouraging trajectory to watch. Braden worked at a vocational training program where he learned restaurant skills and office skills. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and that led our family back to the USA, where we've been living since. And I took on the role of executive director of Senya International. So no longer a volunteer. And again, we focus on advocacy, connection, and inclusion. And I was able to develop 100% of my time to this advocacy. Senya now has conferences worldwide. We have about 2 per year. Our last conference was in South Africa. This spring, our conference will be in Vietnam. We have virtual conferences as well. We also offer a certification program for teachers who want to be better prepared to teach learning support in their schools. We offer awards and scholarships for individuals with special needs who advocate for themselves or others, and also for teachers who do not have the financial means to afford our coursework. We provide them with scholarships as well. We also have an intensive needs bundle where we provide support for schools who wish to open a higher support needs program like the one that I opened in Bangkok. And really the most exciting thing is that we have members now from all over the world, and we have local chapters in over 25 countries who are all working tirelessly to advocate for the education of all students. And really, all we want is to live in an inclusive world. So that's my story. I realized it was fast and furious. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out to me to learn more about Senya. Thank you.
Lori, your story was really inspirational, and talk about inclusion, right? And thank you so much for everybody watching. To learn more, please head on over to www.senyainternational.org. Lori, it was a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for sharing your story and just how now it has become this international commitment and service that you do for the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Hommage à celles qui ont changé l'histoire. Là où la terreur et la haine se font voir, elles nous ont donné de l'espoir. Motema nanga ibanda kubeta nakajali bungu nayo obotingaye obokolingayo omemingana mokongo nayo tu es ma sœur, tu es ma mère, tu es mon ciel, tu es ma terre. Oza esengo oza bolingo mama lelo na yembelio lolango nanga yaya tikana yembela yo oza makasi oza makasi oza makasi lelo na kumesio ensemble plus forte ensemble plus forte nengozo nyokwa mama pona libota na yo motoki na yo pena za kumona tengo za kukumba papasi na yo pona bolamu na biso mama lelo na yembeli yo lolango nanga yaya tikana yembela yo oza makasi oza makasi oza makasi forte.
The theme of Power of Women embodies collaboration through edutainment across diasporas through the collectives alliances that support positive global change.
Hi, I'm Patricia Neal. I am Executive Director of Center for Purposeful Leadership. And today I am so thrilled to be here with my partner in crime, Cicely Victor. Cicely, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm Cicely Victor, and I'm Board Chair for Center for Purposeful Leadership. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Cultivating Personal Leadership and Community Impact. We're so happy you have joined us. At the heart of the matter always is love in action. I think we all know that leadership is an inside game. So today we will speak to you as whole person leaders, engaging all of your gifts and passions and talents. We will follow the convening wheel for this session's design. Today's intent is to explore your leadership and the collective impact that we can create together to make this world a better place for each and every one of us. We have been preparing this space for quite a while, waiting for you all to arrive, inviting you to come. Following the convening wheel creates the conditions and patterns to integrate who you are and your purpose with what you do, from what is at the heart of the matter all the way to committed, aligned action. If you see the wheel there, you can see that. From the heart of the matter, all the way we walk around the wheel to committed and aligned action. That is what you will see here today. The focus is on cultivating personal leadership and becoming leaders of your own life. And then, how do we show up in our leadership towards community? You will also, in addition, be actually getting a demonstrated experience of how we use the art of convening wheel to design for wholeness each and every time we gather, whether it's at work, whether it's around the family table, whether it's across a restaurant table, wherever we gather, we're always in relationship, right? Patricia, I'll ask you to go ahead and give us a more clearer picture of this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cicely. So Cicely's just walked through the first aspect of the convening wheel, at the heart of the matter and clarifying intent. And our invitation to you is just to settle in and listen deeply. And the context for our time together, there'll be three parts. Part one will be speaking to cultivating personal leadership, becoming not just leaders, but whole person leaders is really the context that we work with. And then part two, community impact. How do we show up for the community? How do you show up for your community as a leader? And then part three is putting your learnings into action. So we have quite a bit to cover here. We'll explore the importance of convening, and convening is a way to get your purpose out into the world as a whole person. And what is convening? It's gathering and holding people for the sake of the most generative outcome that you can imagine, the sake of authentic engagement and the highest possible outcome for any meeting, gathering, or conversation. That's what we think of as convening. And we think of that as leadership. And there will be some journaling opportunities because we'll give you some tools. And so if you have the chance to have pen and paper or some other way to capture your thoughts, grab that right now. And then what's really important, we design any meeting, gathering, or conversation for what we call the conditions of welcome, safety, and belonging. because we all want to feel welcome, and we want to feel safety for ourselves, create safety for others. And who doesn't want to belong? Everyone wants to belong in some way, shape, or form. And the way we do that is we do something called creating the container, which is a way to establish the norms or agreements for whatever your situation is. The other day, we were meeting in person. We often meet in Zoom. So this applies to Zoom, hybrid, Teams, in person, wherever you are, is to create these conditions. So we were meeting in person, and we wanted to make sure that we knew what the norms and agreements were. But we do that in our virtual meetings as well. So for instance, some examples of that might be to ask people to be present to life, to listen deeply. Respect for all voices, that's a really important one. And to presume positive intent and acknowledge the impact. And we often ask for maintain confidentiality and take accountability. And we often ask for permission to convene, to be point, to let people know what's next, what's coming. So think about how you might create the container for any meeting or conversation that you have, because this is the beginning of creating the energetic feel for what you want to create when you're with the people that you care about. And we're assuming that the people that you work with in your community or serve, that you care about them, because that's why we're all here, is to bring people together in their purpose and our purpose as well. So thinking about the energy that we're trying to create here with you, what energy are you bringing to this session? And if we were live, we would call this Hearing All the Voices, and we would invite you to write it in the chat or write it on a piece of paper and share it. But we're virtual. And so I invite you just to take a moment to jot down, what energy are you bringing to this session? Curiosity, pleasure, whatever it might be. Just jot that down right now.
And I could say the energy that I'm bringing, Patricia, today is one of an all-embracing love for all who are present here and now with us.
That is wonderful, Cicely. Yes, it's love in action, right? And the energy I'm bringing is our vision, which is a just, inclusive, and interconnected world, a world that works for all. And the only way to get there is what Cicely just spoke, is an all-embracing love for whomever, whatever shows up, to know that all belong and all are meant to be here. So let's move to essential conversation. We're working our way around the wheel. And the first part is cultivating personal leadership, becoming whole person leaders. Cicely.
In her book, Who Do We Choose to Be? Margaret Wheatley says that in the face of irreversible global problems and the devolution of leadership, she began to challenge every leader she met with this question of being and doing. Who do you choose to be for this time? Who do you choose to be for this time? This is a question that we frequently revisit in our gatherings, along with the favorite CPL one. Who and how will I be in relationship with others? So who do you choose to be for this time is Margaret Wheatley's question, and ours is, who and how will I be in relationship with others? Before these questions, let's pause and reflect. What is my true relationship with myself? Heeding the inner call to be a leader requires a clear choice, the commitment to be authentically ourselves. Knowing who I am, acknowledging who I am, allows me to be in authentic engagement with another in a meaningful way. Being a mindful human is an ongoing and caring process. It requires practice, patience, and persistence on my part, a lifelong journey, as many of you all may be already experiencing and knowing. Thinking that we can connect with another just by imagining it can truly be labeled a figment of our imagination. There is leadership, the kind festooned with titles and positions, and then there is whole person leadership, the kind that begins within oneself, identifying what is ours to do, and then taking purposeful action for the world outside. Simply put, leading your life is leadership. Leading your life is leadership. It's simple and complicated. To see the whole picture, it is leading myself first and foremost, demonstrating what it is to be a leader by example, a way of being and leading life authentically with passion, purpose, and contributing my gifts as an offering to the world. Right, Patricia?
Right. Yes, because just like Cicely has spoken, and just like this quote speaks to, it's about the being and the doing. So you might think that you don't have an impact on the world around you, but what you do makes a difference. You just have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And that comes from the being part, the questions that Cicely just asked about who do I choose to be? And so one of the ways, a really wonderful way that we have to look at this, who I am and who is it that I want to make a difference as, is this wonderful thing, the gift that we received from one of our mentors called Richard. His name is Richard Leiter, and it's called the napkin test. And you see, he came up with a formula. He was sitting in an airport, and someone came up to him, had just heard him speak, and said, "Richard, how do I find my purpose?" And he jotted down quickly, G plus B plus P plus V equals C. Your gifts, your passions, your values equals your calling. And so we consider that this is how you get to what is your purpose or your calling. We use them interchangeably. So just again, if you've got something to jot a note on, take a moment and just consider, what are my gifts? What are my gifts? What are the things that I really, people would say, I am a gift because this is what I bring to the world. So just jot that down. What are my gifts? And then take a moment to, what are my passions? My gifts serve my passions. And this is what starts the inquiry of what gets you up in the morning. And then your values. What are you known for? What's a non-negotiable value, for instance? But no matter what, people can always count on you for this value. So you put your gifts with your passion and your values, and they equal your calling or your purpose. They equal what gets me up in the morning. It's really important to know what gets me up in the morning, because that leads into everything else that you would do during your day. So just remember, you can't get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. And what gets you up every single morning? Leadership is grounded in purposeful action. Purposeful action is motivated by your passion, and your passions are expressed through your values, and your calling is what it brings it all together. Cicely, we're going to move on to community impact, and how do we show up for the community as leaders?
Yes, and I wanted to address the fact about how you emphasize the impact we have on the world. And I think even whether we realize whether we have it or not, we must acknowledge that we sometimes can have unintended impact. Yes. So it is better to knowingly go into every gathering with intention. So how do we show up for community as leaders? At every CPL gathering, we have a beautiful segment called Hearing All the Voices, a process of hearing each other into being. Since ancient times gone by, we have come together to sit in circles to have essential conversations about what matters. build communities based on relationships, and have come alive together as groups. As such, convening has always been known to humankind, but somehow along the way, agendas overtook people, projects overshadowed people, productivity became the sole value with which people were judged. The essential process of being in and building relationships faded away. As leaders, we talk long and often about community and impacting and serving community, as if it were that we are being in service to another outside of ourselves. There is no other. I am community. We are community. We are the world. This leading the world together thing is very up close and intensely personal. Richard Leider, we talked about the napkin test, the same person, in his foreword to the book, The Art of Convening book, authored by Craig and Patricia here, says the book reminds him that each gathering is a sacred adventure where even our struggles can lead us into what mythologist Joseph Campbell called the rapture of being alive. Being a whole person leader is rapturous. It's a rapturous experience. In a world that seems fragmented, how do I see people as whole persons, innate leaders with a deep inner motivation to make a difference by being the difference, dismantling the old structures and patterns of knowing to forge new relationships, re-knitting to create wholeness, re-knitting this fragmented world and ourselves, bringing back wholeness everywhere, in the workplace, in our personal life, and everywhere, to come together to create a world that works for all. Patricia, we have had co-led so many gatherings now, I don't know how many years now. What are your thoughts on how we show up individually and in collaboration to serve our community?
Well, this is so true. Cicely and I have known each other for years, and we've never yet met in person. But we will soon, because we're going to be at a retreat together. But it'll be the first time that we will have ever met in person. But we have fallen in love with each other as collaborators and co-workers. And that's the way that we try to design all of our meetings and gatherings, whether they're in person or virtual, it doesn't matter. It comes out of a love of being with people. And we will have a handout. We have a wonderful ebook handout for you called Checklist to Transform Your Meetings. And it's part of our Art of Convening Authentic Engagement series of materials and tools. It's a wonderful tool. But the purpose of this is to design for authentic engagement. And if you remember, we said earlier, it's about the highest possible outcome for any meeting, conversation, or gathering. Because meetings bring us together as human beings, right? I mean, that's really the best thing that you could think about for a meeting. People ask me all the time, well, how can you possibly be on Zoom or in these meetings all the time? And I say, well, it's because I'm with people that I care about. And we try to move beyond meetings being a waste of time to meetings being very thoughtful and caring and loving. And we don't talk a lot about love, our meetings being based in love and action, but that's really what it's about. And perhaps we should talk more about it, actually, if we're really interested and really committed to that interconnected world, a world that works for all. So what is authentic engagement? It's the way to design for meaningful impacts that we all really yearn for. That's what we're doing here. That's what the wheel is for. That's what the book was written for. That's what everything that CPL is about, is to look at how to create authentic engagement and expression of what is true for us and an authentic, attentive listening for what's true for others. We often say that we listen ourselves and one another into being. So in a way, we actually create listening sessions. That's what the design of the meetings or the gatherings are for, is listening sessions so that we can listen to one another, see ourselves in the other, and really discover our interconnection so that we want to co-create that world together. And that's really what is the difference about convening, how we define convening. It's about aligning people in their highest purpose and passions and gifts, to express their calling together. So one of the ways we do that, this is a 7-page handout, but I'm going to skip to pages 6 and 7, because we use this meeting design worksheet to not only navigate the convening wheel, but to design the being and doing of any meeting or gathering. And as I am using this worksheet, Cecilia and I use this to design this workshop. And we use this workshop. I'll think of a government conference that I have presented at many times, and they ask us to bring this meeting design worksheet and the napkin test. They love the napkin test, and love the art of convening. So they ask us to bring this worksheet and to teach it to their people, because to a person, if you ask them if they've never heard about CPL and the art of convening, and you ask them about their meetings and what's a common quality about their meeting, they'll say it's a waste of time. Most of the meetings are a waste of time. They get put on my calendar. I don't know why I'm there. Nobody's really told me what the reason is, which would be the invitation. I don't know the purpose of it. And it often just is not what the best use of my time. They could have put it in a memo and gotten me all the information I need. And instead, if you look at the purpose of a meeting is not to convey information, as people say, you can do that in a memo. You can do that in a handout. The purpose of a meeting is to bring together people who are going to serve one another, learn from one another, and create something new that wasn't there before. That's what human beings are here to do together. So we always begin with what's at the heart of the matter. What's the core purpose? So for this workshop that I was doing with this government agency, at this government agency conference, the core purpose was to introduce people to the art of convening and the convening wheel, and to introduce people to a new way of thinking about being together in meetings and gatherings. And that rolls right into the intent and the invitation. The invitation for them was to experience something that they hadn't ever experienced before, and that this would be a new meeting technology and some new ways of thinking about meeting and gathering. And, so it told them, why should they come? Why should they spend their precious time with us? And the context of it, we always, when we're thinking about it, I knew that actually, as I was presenting in this conference, the first year they gave us 45 minutes, like this workshop. Year 2, they gave us 2 hours. Year 3, they gave us a half a day. Year 4, they gave us a full day, because they got such high marks for being not only unique, but meaningful and delivering on the goals of the conference, which was to give people new ways of thinking and being and doing. The container that we were in was, a typical conference room, no windows, beige walls, beige carpet, all the desks and tables set up in rows. And so we try to mix it up a little bit. We move the tables around a little bit. We moved the chairs around a little bit. We moved out from behind the podium to walk the room, so that I had a co-presenter, so we moved around to actually meet people, make eye contact, and try to enliven the space a little bit, right? So one of the, something that we do that we don't tell people about a lot is that, particularly in physical space, we get out and we move around and we touch the room and try to create energy in the room before people walk in the room, and then do it throughout the time that we're together, so that it's more than just a delivery of information. In Zoom, it's different. You create the container by setting the agreements, letting people know what they can expect, and then try to design some things that might be fun, like using the chat or having some slides. And then we hear all the voices. And Cicely, when you're thinking of designing for hearing all the voices, what's something that you like to do or be invited to do?
Is the first part when we did about the energy is very important, I think, when we start with what is the energy, because then that is like even people who come in a bit tired and, are not really wanting to be there, get motivated when they see it coming up in the chats, the different energies, the love that's pouring out. So you already started off on the right footing with hearing all the voices. So that creates such a wonderful container. That's the beginning of the start of creating that safety and belonging that we talk about.
Yes, and in person, if you have a mic, you can pass the mic around. You can invite people to stand up and each speak just one or two words. We were with 175 bankers. We put them all in concentric circles, and we had what we called the talking mic. And we asked exactly, what energy are you feeling today? And, they had never been asked that question before. And we passed the mic, and at first it was curious, not sure, a lot of curious. And then it got to curious and excited. And then it got to excited to learn something new. And then it got to this is going to be fun. And so by the time we moved around the 175 people, the concentric circles, you could see, the closed arms had gone down. People were smiling. When they were passing the mic, there was a smile and an eye connection it wasn't just passing the mic. Somebody would turn and pass the mic to the person next to them. And so that by the time we got through hearing all the voices, the whole room was lit up. People were engaged. And it's so crucial for people to hear their own voice and what it is, the gifts they have to bring. To me, it's an act of citizenship to allow people to have a voice, not only allow it, to invite the voice and invite the voice into a conversation where they have something to contribute. It's an act of citizen. All citizens have a voice. All voices are needed. And it's the beginning of bringing forward the collective wisdom that's present in the room. So we spend a lot of time designing for hearing all the voices in many ways throughout every single meeting. And if we were with you right now, we'd invite you to, as we said earlier, we'd invite you to put it in the chat. And, other ways to hear all the voices is to have breakouts. So small group breakouts in pairs or triads. And you can do that in virtual space, in personal or in-person space, and then bring people back. And you all know that the real gold in any meeting is when you put people into smaller groups, or where you have them turn to one other person and say and talk to the other person. That's really where the gold is. It's not what I have to say or what Cicely has to say. But then we move to something called the arc of recognition. And the arc of recognition is when we talked about earlier, we listen ourselves and one another into being. It's where I begin to see myself in you. And the real caring begins and the listening deepens. The listening really deepens so that we can move to this essential conversation. What does success look like? So think back to a meeting or a gathering or a conversation you've had recently, or one that you might be designing right now. And what are the successful outcomes? How can you design it so that people feel enlivened, engaged, collaborated with, so that they feel that they have a voice, their voice matters, and they're contributing to the collective wisdom of the whole? And that's what essential conversation happens. And you can see we're almost all the way around the convening wheel here. What needs to be in place for full engagement? And how will you know when it occurs? Will you feel it? You know it. And particularly if you are an experienced, whether you're an experienced convener or facilitator, you begin to feel the energy in the room in a new way so that you can move to creation What do you wish to create that's new or innovative? And so we invite you, when we're working with this worksheet, we invite you to list all the opportunities and the potential. And, you know, in the conferences that I use this worksheet with, sometimes people have like a minute for the napkin test, a minute for something else. They might only have 10 minutes to do this worksheet. So there's just a minute per step, right? But it doesn't matter. People can get into the groove and feel like that they can answer the questions and get started, so that by the time they get to commitment to action, which I'll turn to Cicely in just a minute, they get to commitment to action. And what are the commitments that they want people to leave with? They then, when we finish the 9 aspects, I'll have them turn to a partner and say, name me this meeting. Is it a board meeting? Is it a staff meeting? Is it a family dinner? Be sure and tell your partner what the focus of this meeting is, and tell them how you designed it and how it's going to be better than they ever could have imagined. So I'm going to move on to commitment to action, the last aspect of the convening wheel. And Cicely, actually, before I do that, Cicely, what else did you want to add to?
I think what I would like to re-emphasize what you said about the sheer pleasure of using this checklist. It is because it is a balance of your inner being constantly with the outer, which is then becomes the whole person. So you are able to then be in the room or in Zoom. It doesn't really matter where you are. Like Patricia mentioned, I haven't met her in person as yet, but you can, I think, it is very demonstrable, the rapport that we have with each other, because this is our basis. The checklist is the constant, every meeting we design. And also I wanted to mention about hearing voices. Another important thing is we get some fantastic conversation starters in our gatherings, authors, writers, artists, musicians, everybody, and the whole world comes to our meetings. And there we also have this aspect of they're not just talking to us, but after a session of their presenting, we have something called mirroring. So again, the people in the community who are present are able to mirror what that person said. So even the biggest of conversation starters melts in our meetings because he feels heard or she feels heard. So I think that is very important. We get a lot of joy as we did just earlier today, designing this session itself. And I've also used it in other places where I've said, I would love to bring breadth back to boardrooms, to meeting rooms. And so that's where we are really, I hope you all try this checklist, which I think you all will be receiving, and apply it and see the magic of it in the application of it.
Right.
So you
just remember, it's how to create the highest possible outcome. Who will I be? And how do I create the highest possible outcome?
Yes, the highest possible outcome where you're coming with your most noble self front and center into the room. Yourself, which is the highest possible way to be in the world. Okay, so commitment to action is, we have some questions here. The first one is, what is one highlight of this workshop that resonated deeply with you?
We're going to invite you just to jot a couple of notes or thoughts.
What really resonated? I attended a workshop one time where a person had a kind of a very rough time and I was breaking down, and I was wondering, how are they going to get through this agenda? And that was before I knew art of convening. And the convener at that time said, people before agenda. And I was like, that was liberating to me. And I'm like, of course, people before project, people before agenda. So that was a highlight for me from the other workshop that I attended. So what is the one highlight of this workshop that resonated deeply within you at this session here? The second one being, what is a learning that you may pass on to someone else when you leave the space? We want you to take some learning with you, embody it, carry it in your body with you. And one way of doing it is to share something that really you learned today with somebody else as soon as possible. And the third question is, what would be a next step to apply your learning? What you have learned today, where would you choose to apply it as soon as possible before it just melts like the other workshops we attend and then we forget it? It is comfortable, we've enjoyed it, but then without the next step of action, it just disappears into the mist. So these are
and so this, so this is the part 3 of cultivating your whole person leadership and considering your impact. That's the purpose of these 3 questions. And then we have some more in just a minute. So Cicely, before we close out, I know that there is a poem that you wanted to read, and I will invite you to read that. But do you have any other closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts is that I am so happy to have been part of this Digital Power of a Woman conference. And I'm sure all over the world people are watching. And then for CPL, Center for Purposeful Leadership, to be part of this, to create a better world that works for everyone, has been an honor to be invited to be part of this group here. So it just gives me a lot of joy. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Cicely. And for me, it's that here we are at the end. We've walked the wheel. Thank you for being with us and listening. And that what we really yearn for is for all voices, for people to know they have a voice, to know that their voice matters, and for all voices to be heard in that valuing. And this is the time for women to be heard. We hold up 50% of the sky. We are at least 50% of every equation all around the world. And for women and girls, we do this on the behalf of all people, not just women and girls, but it is time for the power and the gifts that women and girls have to bring forward, to be honored and to be able to offer our best contribution on behalf of the whole. So we thank you for being with us. And Cicely, why don't you take us out with the poem, and then we'll hear what's next.
Yeah, sure. So this poem is by Minx Boren, our longtime friend and a very, very, very dedicated member of the CPL community. And it is also in the book, The Art of Convening book. I picked it out from there to share. It inspired me. What matters and what counts are imagination and inspiration, a hail yes, we can attitude, and a roll-up of our sleeve movement of such magnitude that the future can hear us coming, with our heads held high, above cloudy predictions, our knapsack filled with our gumption and our grit, our gifts and our gratitudes, the new building blocks of new cornerstones of possibility. Thank you.
We have the pleasure of having Dr. Barbara Ledger, who is the founder and director of Golden Path of Peace and creator of global educational programming and curriculum for public school students in Ukraine and beyond. Dr. Ledger today is going to speak to us on economics and business and how to come together while appearing to fall apart. That is a very interesting topic. Welcome to the Power of Women Digital Conference, Dr. Ledger. We're super thrilled to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm very grateful to be in such wonderful company and on this august moment with the G20. It's a very exciting time. And I'm really glad that we're here based on all the 50 or more years that we have worked learning to become powerful. And So my talk today is really about the paradox, or my observations are about the paradox when things seem like they're falling apart. What if, in fact, it were possible that they were really coming together? So I just love paradoxes, and I love using all moments for good. My son, who's a great cheerleader in the family, he tells me that it's really important for me to put the bottom line up front. He calls it bluff. And he said, that way, make sure they know what you're talking about. So I wanted to just do that. I have proven that any one of us who wants to shift into a state of peace, whether energetically, chemically, imaginally, it is entirely possible to do so with one breath as your first step. So I invite you right now to step into the power of peace with me and just take one breath and feel the body center in. And then know that the body loves that attention. And unless the dragon is right on your heels, breathe 2 or 3 more times. And then you'll see what's next right thing to do. Instead of letting the amygdala or that old reptilian brain get a hold of you, you break that pattern. And the power of peace is in you. It's in us. It's in all of us. And so for me, my bottom line is that peace is the biggest power I work with. It's not my ego anymore, or how much I know, or how much I've done, and all the titles and all the wild experiences. But it's really the ability to take a breath at the first sign of distress. And so that's my bottom line. And when I was looking at the ideas of what to present today that were given to us by the producers, you know, I saw this intersection between education and peace and commerce, or business, economics. And that intersection is very compelling. And I've noticed that it's been around a long time in my life. It keeps showing up. So I wanted to look at it this way, that the amount of peace in any given situation will determine or affect the experience we have with it. And the same thing with the amount of education that we have, the amount of understanding that we have of who are we and what's possible, and do we have a worldview that's large, or, you know, is the universe friendly or not? The amount of education that we have, and I don't just mean traditional education, but that we've taken ourselves on in our own life journey, that education is in us. And education means to pull out, you know, to bring out what is within. So the amount that is within us will determine how we respond to any of those difficult situations that seem to be falling apart. And the same with the amount of resources and the way we use business and commerce. Resource and business and economics, to me, those are financial terms and financial vehicles, but for something else. Therefore, the way we allow ourselves to use all the goodness and all of the possibilities of life and all the avenues and the ways to do things. And so if we want to have a positive experience and we're in the middle of everything falling apart, if we could imagine that it's possible for it to be coming together, I have a couple of tools for us. But what I know is the more peace you have, that's the starting spot. And the more education or the more understanding you have that just because it looks like hell doesn't mean it is. And the more willingness you have to use whatever you have as a resource around you, those 3 things become a powerful 3-legged stool. You know, the Buckminster Fuller's triangles that created the geodesic dome, because 3 is a powerful number. So we have these 3 tools. And I want to give you 2 ways to use these 3 tools together. So at the first sign of distress, you breathe. You're using the abundance of life, and we don't even think that, you know, we have to think about breathing because our body knows what to do with it. But what if we choose to do with it something conscious? to break an automatic pattern of reaction or feeling rejected or being angry or needing to prove ourselves. And instead, we just, and then a couple more. And then you realize, I have something else to do. I need to respond to this in a different way because I'm responsible for my experience of the outcome. So I didn't cause the war, but my experience of it will depend on how I relate to it. So if I relate afraid, hopeless, scared, anxious, all of the things that so many people in Ukraine are doing right now, then I am denying the power of peace to help me. And so our work is to bring to the students and the teachers and to anybody who's listening that peace is this powerful thing, and we can use it to experience more peace. And education is a place where we ought to put more resources, because if we want this world to work for everyone, then we must learn to use the resources wisely. You know, Buckminster Fuller, who I had the joy of meeting a long time ago at New Dimensions Radio, he said that if we were to produce only things that were constructive, then there would be enough of everything that's needed for everyone all the time. And education is something that we are constantly availing ourselves of. But what do we teach our children? I used to say to the kids, be safe, be careful. If only I had known to say to them, find something new that makes you happy. Notice something that gives you a smile. You know, those things, we educate ourselves now. We are in the re-education process. And business, resources, it's about putting our attention where we want our life to be. How do we spend our money? How do we vote with our money? What do we spend it on? And do we spend it on stuff we really don't want to because we don't think we have a choice? Or do we give our attention to the same old narrative that everybody's talking about because actually maybe they wouldn't like to hear ours, or ours is a little bit too different? It's time for us to be bold. We're all people of power. Every one of us has power, and we can use peace and education and commerce in a more powerful way. And I invite us to do that. It doesn't cost any money. You know, I used to think that my power was based on whether or not I got that Buick Park Avenue I finally got, or whether I lived in a country club, or whether I looked like this, or had that client. It's not that. The real power is, can I be in this moment, in the chaos that the world is in? Can I be in that moment and be a peaceful person? To be an inspiration and a source of support for my students, my children. We have 9,000 students in the past 2 semesters in Ukraine, 9,000, learning to plant seeds of peace. And so I invite you now to think about, what kind of world would peace be? If you could do something about it, what would be your piece of peace? We plant peace gardens in Ukraine, and I give them this little ditty. My mind is a garden. My thoughts are the seeds. I can plant flowers or I can plant weeds. We have the choice. The event we may not create or control, but the response to it is ours. And the outcome of it, it actually changes when our outcome changes. So we're all powerful, because every one of our experiences goes out into the world. And so I am so grateful for the teachers and the students of Ukraine. They are my heroes completely. They are amazing, and they have used this moment to create a new relationship in the classroom, a relationship of peace. It makes learning easier. It's got their hearts open. The bullying has gone down. The classroom has gotten quieter, and everybody wants to do it. And that's the power of peace. That's the power of putting our attention where we want our life to be. That's the courage and the power to be ourselves, because each one of us has a great gift to give. Let's do it. Thank you so much.
Wow, Dr. Ledger, your work is incredible, and talk about seamlessly weaving together education, peace, and economics. Thank you so much for the practical tools that you're teaching us on how we can respond while the world may seem like it's falling apart, like our lives may seem like they're falling apart. To learn more and to gain more information about these tools, where can we find out more?
Well, first of all, listen to yourselves and listen to the wisdom within you. And this is something my daughter gave me years ago, 35 years ago. Guided means provided. And that, when you listen to that, it really helps. And if people want to learn anything about what we're doing in Ukraine and beyond, we're also in Africa, you can reach us at info@goldenpathofpeace.org. Our website is greatly out of date, but you can go there to www.goldenpathofpeace.org. And soon, God willing and the creek don't rise, soon it'll be all more beautiful. And I'm so grateful to have been here and being part of this amazing program that you're doing these days. Thank you so much, Ashley, and your whole incredible team. You're just doing us all a huge favor. We're very grateful.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The theme of Power of Women embodies collaboration through edutainment across diasporas, through the collectives alliances that support positive global change.
Om Shanti. Om Shanti is the universal language of peace. It is what? It is who every soul is. From the place of peace, I can live out my fullest expression of life. And with deep peace, there is nothing to obstruct my thoughts. I am able to yield to what is and remain conscious to what can be. In peace, I understand you. In peace, you understand me. It is at the center of it all. Vibrations of love. And some say love is a verb. But much deeper than that, love is a vibration. It is that energy that stirs the soul and opens up the heart. Vibrations of love call out to the divine that connects us with the beauty of life and the oneness of it all. I need not to say it with words, although it is always nice to hear. But greater still is to feel it. Vibrations of love lift me higher, and I fill the empty spaces within the soul. It is the divine in its purest essence. It is me at the height of my being. I am vibrations of love. Believe in yourself. You are unique. You are special. There's absolutely no one like you. There is no one else like you in the entire world. And you are here for a divine purpose. The universe is waiting for you to awaken to the essence and the magnificence of your being. Believe in yourself. Be uniquely you. You are the perfect blueprint and image of the divine. Believe in you because the divine believes completely in you. Nothing you have been through is wasted. Every experience, every circumstance, every scene offers a lesson and the blessing. Nothing you have been through is ever wasted. It all serves a purpose, if nothing more than to learn from our challenges and rejoice in our successes. Nothing you've been through is wasted. It's all come to teach us. Pushes, and your vision pulls you. Pain is a great motivator, and it pushes us to the brink of seeking change. Under the influence of pain, we deeply desire to be free, to be healed, to see what is hidden, to know what is unknown. Yet we can either be pushed by our pain or pulled by a vision. Vision too is a great motivator. It pulls us to the calling of a future and what may be possible. The soul is energized as it dwells in the realm of possibility. And I am lifted up by the hope of my dreams and vision. Pain will push me, but my vision will pull me. Your diamonds in dark corners, buried so deep beneath the soil of growth, and under the pressures of life, the beauty of the soul is born. I am a diamond in the rough. I, the soul, am multifaceted, and I radiate light from the many angles, situations, and circumstances. I do not fear the dark corners of my life anymore, for I know they have come to help me to shine brightly. I'm a diamond in the making, even if I'm tucked in a dark corner. Find your diamonds in dark corners. Keep moving no matter what. There's a flow. This thing called life. It moves us ever onward, upward, forward. Like rivers of water, it keeps moving, no matter what. Over and under and round it flows. Let the currents take you on the journey of life. Simply keep going with the flow. Keep moving, no matter what. Who am I? To think and to believe that I'm divine. Powerful, beautiful, and an offspring of the divine. I am the image and likeness of the divine. And so who am I to speak clearly to who I really am? spirit. I am soul. And I use this physical form. I am the being of light. Here to fulfill love that's unlimited. Deja vu. Living in the dream of deja vu. I've seen you before. I've heard you before. I've known you before. I now have the chance to experience life once again. I can feel it. I've been here before. The memory remains deep in the soul. I can't forget those glimpses. The memory that says, you know me. We've done this before. This deja vu is familiar. Yet I'm seeing it with new eyes. I've done this before. I've been here before. It's deja vu. Save me from my past. How much more can I bear? Each day it feels longer. And yet deep inside, I can see freedom. I can see the light. I can see me.